the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Leonardo Teguh Sambodo, Acting Deputy Minister for Coordination for Maritime Resources, Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Firman Hidayat, United Nations Resident Coordinator, Ms. Valerie Julian, Representative Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Sandiaga Salahuddin Uno, by Senior Advisor to the Minister for Bureaucratic Reform and Regulation, Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, Ms. Raden Kurleni Ukar, Excellencies Ambassadors, all of our excellent speakers, representative from line ministries and Bangka Belitung Island local government, development partners, and all of our guests joining us today here in Belitung Island. We are very honored and happy to have you here today on Monday, the 3rd of July, 2023. And we are here for the ASEAN Blue Economy Side event held by the Ministry of National Development Planning of Republic of Indonesia. And today we are going to talk about working level meeting, initiating Blue Economy collaboration. To warm up this afternoon, may we have a very big round of applause. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our honorable guest, today's meeting aims to provide room for policymakers, development actors, and international partners to share ideas and country experiences on the development of blue economy. Today's seminar will be divided into two parts. First, a sharing session about lessons learned from Indonesia's National Blue Agenda Action Partnership, and second, discusses the potential for blue economy implementation cooperation consisting of blue food, blue health, blue innovation, blue data, and ocean justice. Through this event, Indonesia hopes to contribute to the formulation of policy recommendation on the development of Indonesia's blue economy roadmap. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda will be the opening remarks for this important meeting from the Senior Advisor to the Minister for Leading Sector and Infrastructure Development, Ministry of National Development Planning of the Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Leonardo Teguh Sambodo.
Honorable Mr. Muhammad Firman Hidayat, Acting Deputy Minister for Coordination of Maritime Resources, Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia. Ms. Valerie Julian, United Nations Resident Coordinator, thank you for joining this meeting. Ibu Kurleni Ukar, Senior Advisor to the Minister for Bureaucratic and Regulatory Reform from the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. Speakers and moderator, Jim Lip, Co-Director, Center for Ocean Solution, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN, and is it true? No, Center for Ocean Solutions from Stanford University, and then Mr. Kusdiantoro, Secretary Directorate General of Marine Special Management, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia. Mr. Dudi Hidayat, Director of Research, Technology and Innovation Policy Formulation from BRIN, National Research and Innovation Agency of Indonesia, and also representing ASEAN COSTI. And then Mr. Puji Agus Kurniawan, Director for Production Balance from Statistik Indonesia. And then Mr. Mas Ahmad Santosa, founders of Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiatives. And of course, Ms. Mary Ken, Chief Technical Advisor from International Labour organization. Participants from the Indonesian government and ASEAN member states delegation, as well as academia and CEO of high-level institutions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and best wishes to all of us. We proudly welcome you to this beautiful Belitung Island for the side event this afternoon. Hopefully you're already full, feel happy after the nice lunch, and we can continue. And this is a working meeting, a working level meeting. I hope that we can then share some information and exchange knowledge on how we can inspire the members of ASEAN community to take some initiative to develop collaboration. As we also learned this morning that many of the speakers, many of the head of delegations also share the importance of collaboration on how this can mobilize whether resources or ideas to support blue economy development in ASEAN. The meeting is important. This afternoon meeting is important for us to start to think and discuss as early as possible on how the ASEAN member states can collaborate for the blue economy development, while the ASEAN Blue Economy Framework is now being discussed at the same time this afternoon. We need to start brainstorming about the scope, context, and motivation on how such a collaboration can be established. And in line with the theme of today's forum, which is ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth, Chair of ASEAN Indonesia 2023, Indonesia would like also to encourage the ASEAN member states and the development partners to work together in realizing the multiple benefits potentially brought by the blue economy, among others, including conservation and environment protection, whether in land, coastal area, or on the ocean, sustainable economic growth and better prosperity, improve food security, advance innovation and technology, and improve resilience against the risk of climate change damages and natural disasters. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this morning the Minister of National Development Planning has launched the Blue Economy Roadmap for Indonesia. This is the document that is aimed to set a pathway toward a diversified, inclusive, and sustainable maritime economy for Indonesia by ensuring the health and resilience of coastal and marine ecosystems, and securing benefit for the current and future generation. We hope that this document will provide guidance, will guide the policy and programs to achieve Indonesia's 2045 vision and contributes toward the global ambition of transitioning to sustainable blue economies. The roadmap is also a result of multi-institutions collaboration, including the government of Indonesia, the development partners, particularly the UN Resident Coordinator Office in Indonesia, who coordinates the support from the UN family, including the United Nations Environmental Programme, International Labour Organization, and United Nations Development Programme. And also we thank the EU Arise Plus Indonesia Trade Support Facility, Econusa Foundation, and the Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management that support the development of this roadmap. This collaboration also provide on how we can collaborate from different aspects. Indonesia learned much more about many international best practice in how we can safeguard our marine and coastal and ocean environment, as well as on how we can create a better commitment among stakeholders, different stakeholders that involve for the development of blue economy. And at the same time, we would like also to take some opportunity to scale up some of the best practices that are already existing in Indonesia and how we can also introduce these good practices to other locations throughout Indonesia. We also thank and very grateful for the immense support from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development for the formulation of the Blue Economy Development Framework that becomes the basis for developing this Blue Economy Roadmap. And starting this month, Indonesia will also invite further collaboration in initiating the implementation of the roadmap with the focus on blue food. The collaboration will focus on blue food assessment, which will be initiated with the support from the EU-Indonesia Cooperation Facility and, of course, Stanford University. Thank you for that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a collaboration in the maritime development has also been put forward by the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment. It was started in the development of the Indonesian policy in 2017 and the Ocean Policy Action Plan for 2021 until 2025. With the support by the UNDP, the Indonesia Ocean Policy was expected to inspire the archipelagic and island states forum initiated by the government of Indonesia involving 51 participating countries to pursue to advance blue economy in various areas. Despite geographical areas, differences in geographical areas, size, and economic status. A similar motivation was also put forward during the Indonesian chairmanship in G20, where the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment, in partnership with the United Nations, along with other development partners, initiated a national Blue Agenda Action Partnership to accelerate the achievement of the Blue Agenda development targets for ecological and economic balance, following the targets of Indonesia's Medium-Term Development Plan 2020 until 2024 and Sustainable Development Goals. All of these collaborations related to blue economy development in Indonesia, we hope can inspire other ASEAN member states to further cultivate applicable development plans that make the blue economy sector prosper. We believe that there are still plenty of rooms to grow and we can learn from its other journey. Thank you, Pak Firman and Ibu Valerie, for joining this meeting, and we are looking forward to learn from you about the NBAAP and how this can also inspire other countries to follow. The agenda for the afternoon also involves some of the experts that will inspire you also with different topics that may become the topic that will be chosen as for initiating collaboration among ASEAN members. Mr. Jim Lip from Stanford University will present about the concept of blue food, and from that we learn that multiple benefits from blue food can be developed, not only about nutrition, but also the livelihood of the people within the food system value chains. Blue Health, later on, will be presented by Mr. Kusdiantoro from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of Indonesia. Blue Innovation will be presented by Pak Dodi Hidayat from the National Research and Innovation Agency, and some lessons learned in calculating the indicator maritime GDP, which will be presented by Mr. Puji Agus Kurniawan from Statistics Indonesia. And last but not least, we would like also to learn about how blue economy development can also provide improve justice in Indonesia. And this topic will be presented by Mr. Ahmad Santosa. And I hope that the continuous international collaboration on the blue economy will guide and support the implementation of sustainable use of ocean resources for global economic growth, social development, and environmental conservation. The knowledge and experience sharing from international partners can stimulate innovation and create new opportunities for economic growth and prosperity while safeguarding the health and integrity of the resources, inland, coastal, and ocean ecosystem to collaboration and cooperation. There is no better time than now to participate in the process of high-quality collaboration to sustain our economy and provide a brighter future for the next generation. And we look forward to a fruitful discussion today and establishing a potential collaboration for strengthening the blue economy development in ASEAN. Wish you all very best. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia's maritime power has the abundant potential to significantly contribute to the economic recovery. His Excellency, Mr. Muhammad Firman Hidayat, as Acting Deputy Minister for Coordination of Maritime Resources, Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, will provide materials about lessons learned from Indonesia's National Blue Agenda Action Partnership. Without further ado, kindly be invited His Excellency Mr. Muhammad Firman Hidayat to take the stage.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Honorable Pak Teguh, Senior Advisor to the Minister for National Development Planning, Ibu Valerie, the UN Residence Coordinator for Indonesia, Ibu Nika, Senior Advisor to the Minister for Tourism and Creative Economy, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but today is exactly 2 years since I officially moved from Bappenas to coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment, exactly today. So I'm really honored and excited to be here, seeing many familiar faces, my mentors, Pak Leo there, and Pak Teguh, of course, also my mentors. I also see a lot of my friends here, so my family for more than 10 years here. So, ladies and gentlemen, in Bappenas, I used to be on the planning side, but for the past 2 years in the coordinating ministry, I learned and experienced how to execute and implementing the planning. And based on those 2 years of experience, I became more convinced that in order to have a good result, we need both the planning and execution work together. So it is possible to achieve a good results without great planning, but great plan without executions also means nothing. So that's why we need to strengthen the collaborations between different multi-stakeholders in order to make sure the implementations go to the plan. This is where the National Blue Agenda Action Partnership will play a main role. Next slide. So the National Blue Agenda Action Partnership, or NBAAP, was launched on 14 November 2022 during the G20 summit in Bali. This partnership extends beyond the realm of government alone. So it is joint collaborations of the Government of Indonesia, 8 United Nations agencies, and also 12 development partners. By capitalizing the unique strength and perspective each partner brings to the table, we can foster innovations, promote knowledge sharing, and enhance capacity building efforts on a global scale. The design of NBAAP is to accelerate the Government of Indonesia development targets on Blue Agenda in the National Medium-Term Plan, or we call RPJMN, 2020-2024, and also other global targets such as SDGs. So currently, we are conducting what we call program mapping that will be used as baseline data to identify gaps and opportunities. And for the next steps, we will use it to formulate strategies and fit the action plans to achieve the Blue Agenda. So on the next slide, we show you the NBAAP latest structures. And you can see we have steering committee, technical committee, secretariat, and 4 task forces, which have representatives from the government of Indonesia and also from the UN agency and many development partners. So the partnership focus on 4 areas: the Blue Hat, the Blue Food, the Blue Innovation, and Blue Finance strategies represented by each task force here. And in each task force, it will be co-chairs consist of a representative from Government of Indonesia, development partners, and also the UN agencies. Each task force will accelerate the achievement of the RPJMN targets. So in total, right now, we have 17 RPJMN targets within the NBAAP. So however, this indicators is not fixed, so it's flexible. So it can be adjusted, for example, to accommodate global targets. And since today, like Bappenas has launched the Indonesia Blue Economy Roadmap, I think we need to incorporate the roadmap into the NBAAP. I read the book, I count there are more than 100 pages of strategic action plans in the document. So without having strong collaboration and partnership between multi-stakeholders, I don't think we can able to implement all those plans. And again, this is where the NBAAP will play a big role. So NBAAP also has action plan, which again, next slide. Now we need to align with the action plan in the Indonesia Blue Economy Roadmap. Within the action plan, each task force has their key priorities. For the first task force, Blue Health, The Blue Health Task Force is working mainly on programs related to coastal and marine ecosystem protections, such as the commitment of protecting 30% of water Indonesia by 2045. Indonesia is also committed to reducing marine plastic debris by up to 70% by 2025. Blue Health Task Force also acknowledged the different roles of women and men and the importance of integrating a gender-responsive approach into conservation efforts. The second task force is Blue Food. Blue Food has a pivotal role in addressing the blue food challenges. Blue food, including seafood, is vital for global and Indonesian food security, providing a significant source of protein and nutrition, while also serving as a main livelihood for coastal communities, offering employment opportunities and contributing to foreign exchange earning, with Indonesia being the second largest seafood producers. So for the Blue Food Innovation Task Force, mainly involve enhancing capacity, promoting innovation, and ensuring gender inclusivity in ocean-based industries. Last one, the Blue Finance Task Force is working on how to increase investment in Indonesia's blue economy. It is crucial for diversifying economic activity, fostering sustainable growth, and improving living conditions, especially in the wake of the socio-economic challenges posed by the pandemic. I talked earlier about the program mapping. Next slide. So from the program mapping that we have done, we could see the distributions of programs, projects, and activities that are conducted by the members of National Blue Agenda Action Partnerships across Indonesia. So most programs are based at the national level, and in the future, we need to ensure that the distribution of programs related to Blue Agenda is equally distributed. And in addition to that, we need to make sure that the program can complement each other, not overlapping between each other. Next slide. So by having this program mapping, we are able to identify which targets in RPJMN that are not supported by different stakeholders yet. So in the case of RPJMN, we found out that there are 2 RPJMN targets without programs. The bathymetry mapping at a scale of 1 compared to 50,000 kilometers, and ocean quality index for samples. And we found that there are 9 key priorities that without programs support right now in the RPJMN. So ladies and gentlemen, I can show you that having this information offer many benefits for us policymakers. So including improve our spatial planning, informed decision makers, and sustainable resource management. It also fosters transparency, data sharing, and collaborations among stakeholders. So ladies and gentlemen, to close my presentations, I hope that National Blue Agenda Action Partnership can be an example of how we can collaborate and build strong partnership to achieve our Blue Agenda. Thank you so much for your support and contributions. Looking forward to working with you all in National Blue Agenda Action Partnership. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speakers who have expertise in National Blue Agenda Action Partnership, who will be very honored to hear thoughts on how we can transform our nation to be resilient and sustainable. Our next speaker, Ms. Valerie Julian, has been the UN Resident Coordinator, will provide materials about how lesson learned from the National Blue Agenda Action Partnership in Indonesia. Kindly be invited, Her Excellency, Ms. Valerie Julian. Time is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for being here to listen to our presentation on this partnership we are quite proud to have managed together. So Pak Leonardo, a senior advisor on the leading sector and infrastructure in Bappenas. My partner in crime, Pak Firman, Deputy Minister for Coordination of Maritime Affairs, Resources, in Marves. My UN colleagues who are here, members of the international community and representative government official, and all of you who are interested. So thank you, Pak Firman, for presenting the NBAAP, what I'm going to discuss now, it's more the lessons learned of this exercise, because since we have embarked on this exercise, of course, it's not a straight road, and therefore we try to identify some lessons learned that can be useful. Just let me go back onto something that we mentioned actually this morning in our first panel, is how the notion of sustainability is really at the heart of what we do, particularly also with this partnership. Because the idea of the partnership, it's not for the sake of having a partnership. It's to make sure that we really achieve, that we go one notch above what we would do without the partnership, and maybe even 2 or 3. So, and what we look at, it's really to have a sustainable blue development. And, but also, there is this whole discussion we also had this morning about, preserving the ocean for future generations. And this is, I would say, what really led us to think, well, if we want to achieve all that, the sustainability, making sure that we preserve the ocean for future generation, then we need to be well structured. And this is how the idea of having a partnership came about. So the next slide. So what we know is that the ocean has been neglected for many decades. It wasn't really, I would say, a subject of discussion. And then there has been a momentum. There has been, let's say, a raising of awareness. You remember we had the Ocean Conference that actually played a big role in that. But we also have a number of, I would say, global commitments that do address some aspects related to the ocean. And I must say that has helped as well, because it serves also, as I mentioned this morning, this is the legal framework, the international legal framework. I mean, you see them on the slide, but maybe what I want to mention is our common agenda, which is really let's say, the vision of the Secretary General on what more needs to be reinforced in order to make sure that we can achieve the SDGs. Because as you know, we are midway on the SDGs, and we are very much lagging behind at the world level. So therefore, there is a need to boost that. And the reflection of our common agenda emphasizes, among other things, the idea of the future generation and the notion of common goods. This is really what is at the heart of our common agenda. And therefore, in that sense, that really serves us. Because what is a common good? It's a resource that I would say is shared by all, but that also should benefit all, and this beyond national perspective. This is really something that is global. And there is also another, I would say, international framework that I mentioned this morning, and I want to go back on it, which is the BBNJ, the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, which is the latest treaty that has been signed. You may know that this took more than 20 years to achieve that. For more than 20 years, countries have been discussing, member states have been discussing that without reaching an agreement. And finally, in March this year, it was possible. And more than 200 countries have endorsed the BBNJ. And that's really such an important milestone from an environmental viewpoint. I dare say that it's the most important framework after the Paris Agreement, if we look at it from that perspective. And really, when it will be ratified, it will really be the main framework to really, I would say, conserve and sustainably manage the marine species, the ecosystem, the ocean. Indonesia, I'm very happy to say, has signed on the BBNJ, so that's really great. And they did that actually in June, so that's really very recent, but we are very proud and happy. So the NBAAP, the National Blue Agenda Actions Partnership, for us is really, I would say, it encapsulates a little bit the spirit of this different framework with a view to supporting the achievement of the SDGs, and particularly SDG 14. So let's go to the next slide. So as Pak Firman has explained, we have 8 UN agencies, 8 government entities, 12 development partners that work together. So of course, when you have so many stakeholders, it's a recipe sometimes for disasters, because we know that the more you put people around the table, it can become difficult. But that's why I would say some of the lessons learned that we have, let's say, extracted from our experience building this partnership is that coordination is central. We really need to coordinate, because otherwise it's chaos when you have so many partners. So coordination is central, but also a consistent coordination, so something that is on the long term, and also a long-term approach. So when I talk about coordination, and trust me, since I'm a coordinator and I've been doing coordination with the UN for almost 30 years, I really know that coordination is not an easy job. And very often people see coordination like, yeah, we sit around the table, we exchange a bit of information, you know, and that's it. So what it means very often, coordination, it's post facto information. Oh, I've done that, by the way. I wanted to share with you that, you know, I signed that agreement and I did that. That is not coordination. That is, at best, a sharing of information, you know, but when it comes post facto, there is not much you can do. What we say all the time among us, the members, the partners of the NBAAP, is that coordination really sits on the 4 C's. The co-assessment. We really co-assess, co-evaluate the situation. We co-create. We need to, the plan that Pak Firman was showing, the idea is together we reflect on what we should do. Then the co-programming and the co-financing. Because also what we discussed this morning is that the government alone does not have necessarily all the resources. So the partnership is also of bringing resources, either in terms of finance or in terms of expertise. What we need as well, it's a commitment on the long term. Because you see, there can be an enthusiasm to do something, yeah, it works for a year or two, and then we forget about it. The NBAAP partners are committed to really work on the long term. And that's why it is so important to also develop a long-term vision, hence the reference to the future generation, you know, in which way things are going to evolve. So we don't want to think of Indonesia in 2 years. We want to think of Indonesia, you know, in 25 years. And that's why actually the RPJMN, the National Development Plan of Indonesia, is one of the base, as well as other aspects. So there are different actors. The leadership is under Marves, but we also have the Executive Office of the President that is part of it, because what they do is that they monitor what we achieve. Because obviously what we have listed as a priority in the NBAAP is among the important projects that the President's Office are monitoring. Next slide, and I have to go fast. But there is another challenge, is that we tend to work in silo. And when I say we, I mean all we. You know, UN, we tend to work in silo. Trust me, I know, because I try to de-silo the UN agency all the time. Government works in silo, you know. Very often one ministry does something and the next ministry doesn't know. And development partners as well. So that's why, I mean, that's a big challenge, to de-silo everybody. And I can tell you, you know, try to change your natural instinct, then it comes back very quickly. And that's something that with the NBAAP we have to constantly monitor to make sure that we don't go back to the default functioning of working in silo. The short-term vision, as I was saying, is really something we need to avoid. And that's why we need to focus on the long-term vision. But the long-term vision also is nurtured by really a strong commitment of the country. And next slide, exactly. So what are the next steps? And I will finish with that. So the next steps, it's really to create the linkages with the different national programs. Because once again, the NBAAP is not the program. The NBAAP is the mechanism that helps in coordinating what is being done. The NBAAP per se doesn't do anything. It's really the mechanism that makes sure that all that is done in an intelligent, coordinated manner, with a vision, with an objective, with a co-creation, and so on and so forth. And in that sense, having the Blue Economy Roadmap, it's really important, because for us, it's one element that really guides our work. The second thing also, the next step, is to involve more partners. Not that we are masochist and we want to have more people to coordinate, but as we said this morning, we need civil society, we need communities, and we have the plan actually with all the partners of the NBAAP to go visit different places in Indonesia, discuss with communities, because it has to be rooted in the reality. We need to build capacity, but also we need to find resources, more and more resources. I said it this morning, the SDG 14 is not well funded, and we need the flexibility to adopt. And my last thing, and then I will shut up, is that we hope that the NBAAP can serve as a model. We have done it now in Indonesia, but we have a dream that maybe each of the ASEAN countries, each of the 10, soon 11 ASEAN countries could have an ABAP as well. But even we have a bigger dream, why not have an RBAAP, a regional Blue Agenda Actions Partnership? And I think that would be really good, because that could really bring a synergy that is needed for the objective that we have at hand. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for us to move on to the first main agenda of today's meeting. The term of this session is the potential for blue food, blue health, blue innovation, blue data, and ocean justice collaboration in the development of a blue economy. 5 extraordinary speakers are joining us today. There will be Mr. Jim Lip from Stanford University, Mr. Kusdiantoro from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Dudi Hidayat from National Research and Innovation Agency of Indonesia, Mr. Puji Agus Kurniawan from the Production Balance of Central Bureau of Statistics, and Mr. Ahmad Sentosa from Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. This session will be led by our distinguished moderator, Ms. Mary Kant from International Labour Organization. Without further ado, let's welcome our moderator and all the speakers to take the stage.
Okay, good afternoon, selamat siang, assalamualaikum. It is delightful to be here in beautiful Belitung Island this afternoon, and a privilege to be on the stage here with such distinguished and knowledgeable guests. So, to open our event this afternoon, I will say, selamat siang, Bapak Leonardo Teguh Sambodo, Senior Advisor to Minister for Leading Sector and Infrastructure Development, Bappenas, Republic of Indonesia. Bapak Firman Hidayat, Acting Deputy Minister for Coordination of Maritime Resources at the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment, Republic of Indonesia. Ibu Valerie Julians, United Nations Resident Coordinator, Republic of Indonesia. Pak Ahmed is just joining us on the stage, and I will introduce shortly. Ibu Raden Kurlani Ukar, Senior Advisor to Minister for Bureaucratic Reform and Regulation, representing Bapak Sandiaga Salahuddin Uno, Minister for Tourism and Creative Economy, Republic of Indonesia. Representatives from line ministries and Bangka Belitung Islands local government, representatives from all members of the ASEAN community, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen joining us here in Belitung and virtually online too. Welcome to the inaugural ASEAN Blue Economy Forum held here in Belitung. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this side event, which is a working level group on initiating blue economy collaboration. This afternoon, we will take a deep dive into the transformative potential of the blue economy and the vital role that this can play in shaping a sustainable future in the ASEAN region. My name is Mary Kent. I am from the International Labour Organization, which has been working on human capital development in Indonesia's maritime and coastal sectors. And I am also a co-chair, along with my colleague Pak Rama there, for the Blue Innovation Task Force under the National Blue Agenda Action Partnership, mentioned by Pak Firman and Ibu Valerie. Today, joining me is a panel of thoroughly distinguished experts with a richness and wealth of experience between them across environmental, regulatory and policy backgrounds, and they will help us explore blue economy potential in Southeast Asia and advance our understanding of the challenges and opportunities across the key sectors of fisheries, aquaculture, tourism, renewable energy, manufacturing, research and education, and maritime transport. At this morning's sessions, we witnessed the launch of Indonesia's Blue Economy Roadmap 2023 to 2045, and congratulations to the government of Indonesia on setting this clear long-term vision and commitment through this publication. We have heard from the ASEAN Ministerial Panel on the Blue Economy and the commitments from the member states. And we have heard a very insightful discussion from international experts, including Dr. Jim Leap here, who we welcome back this afternoon. Our working level group session will focus on initiating blue economy collaboration. And as Pak Firman emphasized, this is a working group, and because we have experienced and knowledgeable delegates and participants with us and joining online, our task this afternoon is to contribute to the dialogue and the development of the Sustainable Blue Economy framework across ASEAN member states. So while we listen to our presentations from our distinguished speakers, I invite you to consider these insights and prepare for our discussion, which will be around the topics of advancing our collective understanding of blue economy challenges and opportunities, on identifying blue economy good practices that may be adopted more widely, and identifying activities, programs, synergies and complementarities between ASEAN countries where there is greater potential to initiate new collaborations. So without further ado, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce Dr. Jim Leap, co-director at the Ocean Center, at the Center for Ocean Solutions at the Economic Research Institution for ASEAN and East Asia at Stanford University. Pak Kustiantoro, Secretary of the Directorate General of Maritime Spatial Management at the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, Republic of Indonesia. Dr. Dudi Hidayat, Director of Research, Technology and Innovation Formulation at the National Research and Innovation Agency of Indonesia and the ASEAN Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation. Pak Puji Agus Kurniawan, Director of Production Balance at the Central Bureau of Statistics, Republic of Indonesia, and Pak Ahmed Santosa, co-founder and chief executive officer of the Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. So each of our panelists will speak for about 10 minutes, for about 12 minutes, sorry. And we will have, my colleagues in the audience will, I'm sorry, math. My colleagues in the audience will give a reminder when we have about two minutes left, so they will give a nod. So we have Budui there who will give a nod and let us know when we are 2 minutes from our time. So panel members, I ask for your forgiveness in advance because we want to keep strict time so that our audience here can participate and join this discussion. So please let me introduce Jim Leap, co-director at Centre for Ocean Solutions at the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia at Stanford University. Jim is a co-founder and leader of the Blue Food Assessment. He is the William and Eva Price Senior Fellow and co-director for the Centre of Ocean Solutions in the Stanford Woods Institute for Environment and the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability. Before coming to Stanford in 2014, Jim was Director General of the WWF International and leader of the WWF Network, one of the largest global conservation organizations. Previously, he directed conservation and science programs at the David and Lucille Packard Foundation. He was a legal advisor to United Nations Environment Programme in Nairobi, Kenya, and a member of the China Council for International Cooperation in Environment and Development, which advises the Premier of China. He's also a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School. So please, the stage is yours, Dr. Jim Leap.
Okay, so thank you, Mary. As some of you have begun to infer, almost every conversation I'm involved in turns to blue food, and that's what I'm going to talk about here. We had a bit of a discussion about whether I should recap what it was, some of what I covered in the morning, just as basic foundation, because there'll be some in the audience who weren't there. For those of you who were there, I apologize, a little bit of repetition. But I want to talk about how blue food could provide a foundation for the collaboration that ASEAN builds around the blue economy. It's a powerful place to start because it's so centrally important to people across this region, and because collaboration is so important to sustaining and capitalizing on blue food resources. If I could have the first slide. As we talk about it, I at least am thinking about collaboration in two ways. I mean, that is, what are the opportunities for the countries of ASEAN to learn from each other as they address the challenges and possibilities of blue food? And then secondly, where are there opportunities for countries to work together to meet those challenges as they go forward? So with that, oops, okay, next slide, please. And one more. Okay, brief whirlwind tour of what we covered this morning. What I'm talking about here, what I'm saying here is grounded in the Blue Food Assessment. The Blue Food Assessment composed of 8 papers published by Nature, the work of 100 scientists around the world. Next, click. Those science papers have been translated into a report for decision makers and a series of issue briefs, make them all more intelligible to people like you, perhaps like you, but certainly like me, to discuss the implications for policymakers, for business leaders, for others. You can find all of this at bluefood.earth. Next slide, please. Next slide, yeah. Most important is that blue foods are incredibly diverse. There are more than 2,500 different species. That gives you a lot of opportunity to identify species that are well matched to your needs, whether it is because of their nutritional profile, because of the opportunity they provide for small-scale production, or for lower footprints. Next, please. The Blue Food Assessment looked across 3,500 different blue foods, and what it found was that most categories of blue food are much richer in micronutrients than are any terrestrial source meat. And this is a key point. We talk about fish as protein. It is protein, but it is most important, in fact, as a rich supply of nutrients that are especially important for healthy development of young children and for the mothers who are carrying them. Next. Blue foods also have a lower footprint than most other animal source meats, much, much lower than beef or sheep, but also lower than pork and chicken. Next slide. And there is a lot of opportunity, and we're going to talk about this as we get into areas of collaboration, but there's a lot of opportunity to do even better with blue foods because not that much attention has been given to improving environmental performance. So there's opportunity to improve the environmental performance of existing capture fisheries, to improve the performance of aquaculture, in particular by using less feed, because a lot of the footprint of aquaculture is in the production of the feed that is provided to fish. But there's also huge opportunity in thinking more broadly about what fish we produce and therefore what fish we eat. There are many, many, many options to produce blue foods that just have an intrinsically lower footprint. Two examples are small pelagics and unfed aquaculture, so bivalves of various kinds. Next. And of course, seaweed. Last, I think, is that at the heart of this system are small-scale producers. When you think blue foods, you tend to think of big trawlers and big fish farms, and those are important, and we have to be addressing the challenges they present in terms of sustainability. They need to be well managed, but most of the food we eat and most of the jobs in this sector are in the small-scale actors. And those actors are typically ignored in policy, but as we think about collaboration across ASEAN, a big area of collaboration we will come back to is how we better support those actors who are the heart of the system. Next slide.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Next slide. Okay, so recap. Three big things. I think it was Valerie who was earlier emphasizing the sort of central importance of oceans to many of the SDGs. And this is especially true of blue foods. So they have huge potential to meet goals for poverty, hunger, and health. First three of the SDGs, because they are so rich in nutrition and because they offer such fertile opportunities for livelihoods, especially in poor coastal communities. They also have a role to play in getting to net zero, something which is generally overlooked, but they have the potential to be a big part of the equation. Next slide. And finally, the end of the recap. Diversity is an opportunity. There are lots and lots and lots of win-wins here. To take one example, small pelagic fish are top of the charts in nutrition. They also can be lower footprint than many other blue food species. It's a win for both health and food security and a win for the environment. So shifting to small pelagics is just one example of the opportunity to take better advantage of the diversity in the system. Okay, next slide. Areas of collaboration. Wow, that took longer than it should have. Okay, we're going to go fast. First is sustaining fisheries, already on the agenda of ASEAN. But we're talking about blue foods. You have to be serious about sustaining fisheries, and in particular in a time of climate change. Right? Fisheries will be increasingly challenged as stocks shift, as production or productivity is impaired. And so working together to better manage fisheries becomes more important than ever. One part of that is addressing IUU, and IUU demands collaboration, right? You need to be sharing data, sharing information on your fleets with your neighboring states so that those states can effectively control fishing in their waters and fishing and vessels coming into port. So collaboration in IUU is a key priority in the Blue Food Agenda. Secondly, how do you work together to manage the shocks that are coming from a changing climate? How do you manage fish stocks as they shift across jurisdictions? How do you use trade policies to help buffer the impact of the changes in productivity and in geography? Next slide. Nutrition. This is a bigger shift than it sounds. If you think about fish as a nutrition resource and not as just as an economic resource, that filters into a lot of policy decisions. Decisions about whether to grant access rights to a foreign fleet, decisions about whether to export the fish that's being produced, look different if you're thinking about the nutritional value of the fish involved. So bringing nutrition into policy making has implications for fisheries management. Given the nutritional opportunities here, then who should be allowed access to this fish? Whose access needs to be protected? It has implications for aquaculture development. What are the fish that actually are most promising for meeting the priorities we have for nutrition and health? It has implications for public health policy. Health ministers should see blue foods as a solution to some of the problems they're confronting, stunting, for example. And trade ministers need to be thinking about, okay, as I make decisions about trade policy, what implications do those have for nutrition and food security as well as for economics? Next slide. Small-scale actors, as I mentioned earlier, small-scale actors around the world tend to be invisible in blue food systems. We all focus our attention on the big guys, and they need attention, but we need to pay attention to the small producers as well because they're so centrally important. And that means making sure that they are enabled to succeed, right? That they have tenure, that to the resources upon which they depend, that they have support to build capacity and access to markets, that they have the innovations which will allow them to be successful. Next slide. One example is Abelobi. It's a startup out of South Africa, but now in several countries around the world, which puts on a smartphone the capability for a small-scale actor to manage his or her fishery and to access their local markets. Next slide. A second example based in the Philippines is Fortuna. Next slide. Fortuna, which are coolers made out of coconut shells instead of styrofoam, actually came out of a Stanford class, but work better than styrofoam, are sustainable, and help small-scale fishers preserve the value of their catch by keeping it cold until it reaches market. Next slide. E-fishery, which many of you will know well, has become very successful in Indonesia, providing support to small-scale fish farmers all across the country, enabling them to operate more efficiently and to sell and to prosper. Next slide. Okay, whirlwind tour of climate policy. So two things, next slide. One is, like every area of the tropics, ASEAN will be hard hit by climate change. Blue food systems will be hard hit by climate change. So working together to help those systems adapt is especially important. Next slide. But it's also important to recognize that those blue food systems can be part of your NDCs, can be part of getting to net zero. Because there are opportunities to reduce emissions in existing sectors, better fisheries management reduces fossil fuel use and therefore greenhouse gas emissions. Because you can promote low carbon choices, help people shift to fish which are intrinsically lower carbon in footprint. You can develop new systems that are lower carbon, and you can reduce loss and waste in the blue food sector, and therefore, I know, I have my own alarm. I'm gonna take 30 seconds. Okay, next slide, real fast. Oh, there are 3 slides here, but we'll go really quickly. Next. So the last thing, I said this in the morning, but you really need data. So a place to start in cooperation is collecting much more granular data about blue food systems across the region. Because you can't manage for nutrition, you can't manage this diversity for greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. Unless you have better data that allows you to look beyond fish to carp versus tilapia versus bivalves versus small pelagics. This is calcium. Next slide. This is greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, sorry. You can see there's a huge range across all the different blue foods. Taking advantage of that range really allows you to begin to realize the possibilities that are there. And sorry to go 60 seconds over. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jim Leap. That was a lot of information in 12 minutes, and thank you. You crammed a lot in about the huge opportunity of blue food sources and the methods of collaboration that may support that advancement in the ASEAN community. So thank you. We will move from blue food to blue health. So Dr. Kustian Toro is the Secretary Directorate General of Marine Spatial Management at the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia. Pak Kustian Toro is a scholar of science and economics, having studied in both Denmark and in the Republic of Indonesia, and his research publications have focused on the critical issue of managing sustainability in capture fisheries. Please go ahead. Floor is yours, Pak.
Thank you, Mary. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang and good afternoon, everyone. Next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and participants, the wood population is projected to grow by more than a third by 2050, and the FAO predict that global protein need will increase by up to 70%. This significant increase of protein recruitment must be activated and addressed starting from now. The years 2050 is expected to witness a substantial increase in the global citizen population, which will inevitably place greater pressure on the demand and supply of protein, as traditional source of protein such as livestock farming face a challenge due to limited land availability and environmental concern. Attention to the vast potential of marine environment. With advancement in aquaculture technology and sustainable fishing practice, marine research offer a promising solution to meet the growing protein need of an expanding population. Seaweed farming, fish cultivation, and the development of innovation seafood products are likely to become crucial contributor to protein supply. However, the sustainable utilization of marine resource must be priority to prevent overfishing, maintain ecosystem balance, and safeguard biodiversity. Collaboration effort between government, scientists, and industry stakeholders will be essential to establish responsible and rational approach. The protein from the marine environment will preserving its long-term viability. Next slide. In archaeology country, we see coastal and ocean area as our asset. Mangrove, seagrass, and coral reef ecosystem, as well as fish resort, the spread across more than 17,000 islands, have great ecosystem service value which support national economic and coastal community livelihood. However, these assets are under pressure from sustainability, exploration practice, and other external factors such as climate change. The current population of Indonesians stand at 275.5 million and is projected to increase by 7.2% to reach 296 million by 2030. A significant portion of the population reside in coastal area. Next slide. The Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries believe we need to sustainable manage to our environment for future generation. This would be released through implementing Blue Economic. In our view, Blue Economic is part of sustainable development framework with support to address issues such as development gap and imbalance welfare distribution for marine resource, human resource capacities in ocean sector, and more importantly, national economic growth. Therefore, the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries has endorsed a Blue Economic Roadmap with comprised strategic policy on Blue Economic toward 2045. Overall, it's aimed to create balance between two aspects, ecology and economic, which in return will bring prosperity and welfare to a community. Next slide. Maintaining blue health or ocean health is one of the foundations to create blue growth. Therefore, we are content is implementing consistently. Our blue economic policy will contribute to creating a health ocean that consequently will support investment opportunity, create job, and provide equitable economic growth from the marine and fishery sector. However, to implement blue economic, we cannot rely only on government effort. We need all support from other stakeholders that we can utilize to maintain ocean or blue health. This is where I think collaboration and coordination through the National Blue Agenda Action Partnership, NBAAP, would serve such a role. Next slide. The main pillar of Indonesia Blue Health Initiative focus on observation and protection of its marine ecosystem, which one of the world's most extensive coastline and abundant marine biodiversity. Indonesia recognized the importance to safeguard its valuable natural resource. We have several programs regarding to marine protected area and rehabilitation. Additionally, the country focus on developing on sustainable blue economic by promoting industry such as fisheries, aquaculture, marine tourism, and renewable energy. Next slide. Performance indicator for NBAAP target are crucial for assessing progress and aligning with National Development Plan, SDGs, and other global agreements. This indicator provide a mean to measure and evaluate and effectiveness of NBAAP implementation and ensure its integration in broader development strategy. Aligning NBAAP target with a global deal such as the conservation on biological diversity and other international commitment in hand to a harmonization of exports and further international cooperation in biodiversity conservation. Next slide. In 2023, Indonesia had made significant progress in establishment and management of MPA, demonstrating its commitment to conservation its rise in marine biodiversity and ensure the sustainable use its coastal marine and marine resource. Through the collaboration effort between government, agency, local communities, and conservation organizations, several MPA have been designed across the archipelago and fishing and diverse range of marine ecosystem. The management of MPA involved the implementation of sustainable fishing practice, habitat restoration initiative, and community agreement program that promote a local asset. By designing and effectively management MPA, Indonesia aims to protect its marine ecosystem, support the recovery of fish population, and enhance the resilience of coastal communities that rely on the health of productivity of the ocean. Next slide. As our blue economic strategy, our target to increase MPA to cover 30% of Indonesia marine area or around 97.5 million hectares of MPA by 2045. MPA coverage will protect significant ecosystem like seagrass, mangrove, coral reef, and provide multiple benefits, including increased carbon sequestration. We will achieve this target through strategic programs that determine MPA allocation through science and effective management of MPA. Next slide. Indonesia recognized the importance of ocean accounting, valuable tool for sustainable marine resource management. By implementing ocean accounting practice, Indonesia aims to assess and quantify the economic value its marine ecosystem and the service they provide. Ocean accounting will be used as an indicator to balance economic growth and the sustainable of marine resource. It also helps evaluation the impact of economic activity on the ocean and assess the quality of marine management policy.
Pak, there's
Ocean
just-
accounting
sorry,
aim to provide a
Excuse me, there's just
Okay.
1 or 2 minutes left,
Yes.
Pak. Thank you.
Yeah. Slide. Next slide. Next slide.
Here.
The South as ASEAN region hold a great potential for collaboration in the developing of the blue economic and fostering blue health initiative. Countries in the region such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, in Malaysia, and Philippines share common marine ecosystem, diverse marine resource, and similar challenge and opportunity. Collaborative effort can include knowledge sharing, capacity building, and joint research initiative to promote sustainable practice in sectors like fisheries, aquaculture, marine tourism, and renewable energy. Sharing best practice in marine protected area management, implementing sustainable fishing method, and address marine pollution and can contribute to the preservation of a marine ecosystem and well-being of coastal community. Additionally, collaboration can focus on establishing regional network and platform that facilitates information exchange and joint investment, fostering innovation and economic growth through such collaboration effort. The Southeast Asian region can harness the full potential of the blue economy, will ensure to long-term health and sustainable of its marine resource. As a regional community, we believe the Southeast Asian national could do more toward collaboration and partnership among future collaboration to improve blue health. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Pak. Thank you very much. So thank you, Dr. Kustiantoro, for a whirlwind trip around maritime policy from the marine affairs and fisheries priorities, taking us from where we started with the strong case for incorporating blue food, and taking us right the way into the targets and priorities towards 2025, including that collaboration around marine protected areas. So lots of things in common. We will move now, our journey now will move from blue health to blue innovation. I'll introduce Dr. Dudi Hidayat, Director of Research, Technology and Innovation Policy Formulation at the National Research and Innovation Agency of Indonesia. Dr. Dudi studied in both the Netherlands and the UK before completing his doctoral education in public administration at University of Indonesia, and since 1995 he has been a researcher at the Research Centre for Science and Technology Development at the Indonesian Institute of Sciences. So the stage is yours, Pak Dudi.
Thank you, Mary. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for the time for me to share. Actually, it's the result of the project under COSTI, the Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation. For those who don't know, ASEAN is operating through a number of sectoral bodies, and COSTI is one of the sectoral bodies. So last year, at the end of last year, we have agreed to carry out the project to identify science technology contribution to blue economy of ASEAN Blue Economy. And Indonesian COSTI lead the project, and we have done some discussion and workshops, and by now we can produce this draft zero of science and technology based ASEAN Blue Economy frameworks as a contribution to the ASEAN Blue Economy Framework, which is led by Bappenas. Next slide, please. So, as you all may know, this is the potential of the blue economy in ASEAN. The mangrove is 32% of the world mangrove lies in ASEAN, and the seagrasses and also the coral reefs. And the three major sectors, fisheries, tourism, and blue carbon, has a very huge potentials in ASEAN. So therefore, ASEAN COSTI is also decided to contribute to this blue economy, ASEAN. Next slide, please. So this is the series of workshops that we have done with all the experts from the 10 ASEAN member countries, which was done through hybrid meeting. In last year, December, the first kick-off expert meeting, the second in March, in mid-March 2023, and the last is in Jakarta, 7 to 9 June. So each meeting has some deliverables. For the first meeting, we agree on the adoption of the proposed assessment matrix by all MS. And the second meeting, there is a report on the Asian existing conditions on science, on smart aquaculture, marine ecosystem health, and integrated ocean monitoring. We identified the gap, the issues of the current implementation, and also we arrived at the STI recommendation. And the last meeting, we drafted the report on the ASEAN Blue Economy Roadmap from the perspective of science technology. So in a sense, it's not really blue innovation because we are focusing on science technology, actually. And we agreed to focus on three areas: smart aquaculture, marine ecosystem health, and integrated ocean monitoring. And I should say that there are three subcommittees under COSTI who really drive this project: the subcommittee on marine science, subcommittee on space science and application, and also the subcommittee on electronic and information technology. Next slide, please. So at the end, we agreed that the blue economy aspect that we are looking at is first the economic aspect is smart aquaculture. It's a very small portion of the blue economy, but we do agree, and because of the resources that we have and also the time that we have, smart aquaculture should be a focus. But then to support this economy aspect, we need an ecological aspect. And in this aspect, science and technology can contribute much. So the marine ecosystem health is very important to support smart aquaculture and also the integrated ocean monitoring. And through the discussion, we have discussed about the best practices, current best expertise in a number of ASEAN countries. And then we discuss about current challenges, and also we try to identify the STI recommendation. And at the end, the roadmap for ASEAN we have been drafted. Next slide, please. So I try to go through one of these focus area one by one, quite fast. Marine ecosystem health. Next slide, please. So the current challenges in ASEAN, there are 4 current challenges, major current challenges. The data reliability, there's always a problem about the reliability of data. There is also a varied data collection. There is no standard data collection at the time among the ASEAN countries, and also conflicting regulations. And of course, at the end, human resources. We have also a problem in the capability of human resources. And after discussion of these current challenges, we come out with the recommendation. Next slide, please. There are 3 major recommendations for marine ecosystem health. We think that we need to develop regional platform for marine ecosystem health to measure the status of ecosystem health and monitor it in the ecosystem. And we need to improve the human resources, and therefore we need some capacity building programs. And we need also to emphasize the role of the subcommittee on marine science and technology for coordination, monitoring, and evaluating the common platform for marine ecosystem health assessment. And at the end, for this priority area, next slide, please. we a roadmap. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is a concise roadmap in this area, marine ecosystem health. We need to develop the regional ocean health index. We need to agree on the indexes. We need to develop regional database management. Also need to improve human resources and also strengthen the role of the subcommittee on marine science and technology. So through this 5 years period, we indicate a number of activities. Next, please. For the integrated ocean monitoring, which was led by the subcommittee on space science and application, we identify, next slide please, the challenges, the common challenges among ASEAN countries, that there are still varied data collection, and we realize that the data management, the existing data management practices are quite ineffective, and also we need to reach more the communities in communicating the data. Next slide, please. And this is the recommendation for integrated ocean monitoring, development of the ASEAN Network Center for Ocean Monitoring Activities, establishment of system of data sharing, considering the data policy of representative AMS. Feasibility studies also needed, of ASEAN satellite constellation, that can monitor the ocean monitoring. We need to promote the engagement of private sector in this area, and also the subcommittee of space science and application need to strengthen the capacities of integrated ocean monitoring. So the next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is the roadmap in the area of action plan, data center, improve human resources. Next slide, please. The last priority is smart aquaculture. This is really economy, smart aquaculture. The current challenges in this smart aquaculture, next slide please. The domination of small-scale fish farmers, it might be an advantage, but through our discussions, this is also a problem because our small-scale fish farmers are not really well skilled and well educated, so there is a problem there. And also lack of access to modern technologies among the small-scale fish farmer, and limited high-quality fish broodstock, vaccines, and also feed. And lack of waste management and lack of digital literacy among these small-scale fish farmer. And so therefore we recommend, next slide please, innovation of smart technologies for sustainable aquaculture via scientific collaboration and capacity building. During the discussion, we realized that Singapore, for example, has been advanced in this area, and maybe Singapore can lead the ASEAN countries in this regard. Development of regional guidelines for smart aquaculture certification, and also promoting social engineering and digital literacy for small-scale farmers. And next slide, please. This is the map for the smart aquaculture. Regional guideline for smart aquaculture certification should be drafted and should be developed and implemented and evaluated for ASEAN purposes. And then innovative smart tools should be developed, improve human resources. Next slide, please. The proposed action plan after the discussion in 3 focus areas has been discussed and agreed upon, but I should mention that this plan should be approved by the COSTI in October this year, the Committee on Science and Technology and Innovation. But through discussion of experts, until now, we agree that, for example, for marine ecosystem health, Philippines to lead a seminar, workshop for the development of marine ecosystem health index, Malaysia to lead training for the development of database management, and Indonesia to lead seminar, training, workshop for expert mobility for capacity building. So we have identified a number of action plans in 3 focus areas: marine ecosystem health, integrated ocean monitoring, and smart aquaculture. And lastly, we need also to identify, next slide please, our SDI contribution with regard to the Blue Economy Framework, ASEAN Blue Economy Framework. We have identified that in 4 areas that has been identified in the Blue Economy Framework is closely related to our priority areas. For example, addressing technology and digital gaps among IMS. In the focus area marine ecosystem health, we are also dealing with that issue. In integrated ocean monitoring, also smart aquaculture. And improving value chains is also part of our discussion for smart aquaculture. And lastly, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, this is a number of pilot activities that is suggested in the Blue Economic Framework, and we have identified that our focus areas is also involved in that kind of pilot project. So I would say that our science technology-based Blue Economy Framework is in line with the ASEAN Blue Economic Framework that's so far developed.
Okay.
I think that's the end of my presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think. Thank you for your attention.
Terima kasih, Pak. Thank you, Pak Juli. Perfect timing as well. Thank you. So this is very interesting because this is a very concrete, COSTI is a very concrete collaboration between ASEAN member states leading on that science, technology and innovation aspect. And I'm sure Jim will have noted the reference to the importance of data just coming up as an absolute central theme there. So I'm sure we'll come back to that later in our discussions. But terima kasih, thank you, Pak. Now we will move on to our presentation from Pak Puji Agus Kurniawan, who is Director of Production Balance at the Central Bureau of Statistics, Republic Indonesia. Pak Puji holds his first degree in statistics and a master's degree in economics from the International University of Japan. He specializes in macroeconomic modeling and developing estimations on GDP on a regional basis. Pak Puji, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here as a part of this distinguished event. We will share about our experience in estimating maritime GDP in Indonesia. For you know that Indonesia is a huge country with abundance of marine resources. Next slide, please. Yeah, as mentioned before by another speaker, but in Indonesia, we have more than 17,000 islands, and also we have about 108,000 coastline. According to data from Geospatial Information Agency, 2/3 of Indonesian area are sea or ocean. And also we know that some of economic activity based on marine resources, such as for tourism, fishery, both in production and also export. By looking this abundant resources, the big question is how to manage this potential we have. This is the big question. So, unfortunately, Indonesian government launched the Blue Economy. Next slide, please. Yeah. According to the World Bank report in 2021, Blue Economy requires policy making based on science and data, maritime cross-sectoral coordination, participating of diverse stakeholders, and also invest in skills, institution, infrastructure, and innovation. To reach that goal, at least 4 main strategies. First one is improve management of marine, coastal, and resources, mobilize incentive and investment. The third one is better system for data collection and monitoring. And the last one is build back better blue economy past COVID-19 pandemic. We in statistical agency commit to deliver some data need by the government. One of the data is the maritime GDP in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Actually, the initiative to measure maritime GDP came from the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment about 2 years ago, and we agree. But in the first step in the 2021, we identified the scope of maritime GDP based on Ocean Account framework. And at the time, we agree that the scope of maritime GDP consists of 373 industry, and then we group those industry into 12 cluster. Consists of fishing and coastal aquaculture, offshore oil and gas, mineral extraction, marine-based manufacturing, boats and ship building, maintenance and repair, and so on. There is 12 cluster in Indonesia maritime GDP. Next slide, please. Previously, I mentioned about the Ocean Account. What is the Ocean Account? Ocean Account is a structured compilation framework of consistent and comparable information in terms of maps, data, statistic, and indicator concerning marine and coastal ecosystem, including related social circumstances and economic activity. This Ocean Account recommends the framework to describe interaction between the economy and the environment, to describe the stock and changes in stock of environmental assets that provide benefit to people, and to describe social and governance factor affecting and affected by the status of condition of environmental asset and associate benefit. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is 7 accounts recommended by Ocean Account. First one, for example, is ocean asset. In this asset, we record environmental asset and natural resources in marine and coastal asset. And also in the second accounts, we record the flow to economy from the environment to economy. And the third account, we record the flow from economy activity to environment. And the fourth account, we record ocean economy and economy. And then governance, combined presentation, and national wealth. Of course, we in a statistical agency cannot measure those accounts. We have some limitation. So by coordinating with Marves and also take collaboration with other agency, we focus to estimate maritime GDP as part of ocean economic and the economy in the fourth accounts. So if we talking about maritime GDP, it means that it parts of ocean account. Okay, next slide, please. Our challenges in measure maritime GDP is data availability. That's why we ask some agency to join with us to deliver the data they have. Some agencies such as Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fishery, and also from National Research and Innovation Agency, and then also from Ministry of Finance and so on. We identify the data they have. Yeah, unfortunately, not all data we need are available. So we have to estimate the data which is unavailable. We use some information from discussion with private sector, business association, and also with some expert, and we do some in-depth study, studi literature, and so on. We collect all information we have to estimate the data. Next slide. In this slide, we describe the data sources for each of 12 cluster maritime GDP. Not for cluster number 7, marine renewable energy and distribution. Up to now, we don't have the data. Hopefully, next year, in the view next year, we have the data, and we can put the information as part of maritime GDP. In 2022, BPS, our statistic Indonesia, and also Marves and those agency start to collect the data and estimate the figure. And Alhamdulillah, last year the figure already sent to Marves, but in this event I cannot share the figure because the figure will officially launching by Pak Luhut in August, hopefully. But in our collaboration, not only estimate the maritime GDP, but also we derive some indicator. So beside the maritime GDP in both constant and current price, we also derive the share of maritime GDP and also the growth of maritime GDP for 12 cluster and also for other indicator. That's all my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Back to Mary.
Terima kasih, Pak Puji. Thank you so much. So this is, let me understand, this is the first estimation of maritime GDP. I thought you were going to give us the big reveal at the end. I thought you were going to give us the figure, and I was getting very excited. But we have to wait a little bit longer for Pak Luhut to tell us what that figure is in August. But that's very interesting and fascinating that 14 different entities, different ministries and institutions, and those are just the public entities that you need to liaise with to get that information. So I will be listening for that figure in August. And we move now to Pak Ahmed Santosa, specialist in Blue Justice, so co-founder and chief executive officer of Indonesia's Ocean Justice Initiative. Pak Ahmed Santosa has a distinguished background as a legal reformer in Indonesia, particularly on issues of anti-corruption, judicial independence, environmental and sustainable development. He is a senior lecturer on environmental law and natural resources law at the Faculty of Law, University of Indonesia. And in his recent career, he has been a leader and advisor on government task forces to combat illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. He has also acted as an expert and Sherpa representative for a high-level panel on the sustainable ocean economy. Pak Ahmed, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Indonesian and other ASEAN countries' dignitaries, distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen. The ASEAN community, particularly Indonesia, has long recognized the vital role the ocean plays in our future and are aware of the challenges that our oceans face. Today I present to you the IOG's presentation on a blue economy governed by strong sustainability and justice principles. Slide number 2. The potential of marine economic assets in the world is significant, estimated to be at $24 trillion based on WWF in 2015. Indonesia has huge potential in the blue economy, as presented by other speakers this morning. Indonesia is one of the largest ocean nations and the second longest coastline in the world. Indonesia also recognized as one of the busiest shipping lanes globally. Indonesia has huge amount exotic marine tourism spots. Indonesia is one of the largest blue carbon ecosystems country, has huge potential from carbon absorption. Slide 3, please. The potential is enormous, but the ocean is in trouble as studied by High-Level Panel for Sustainable Ocean Economy 2020. All of the problems mentioned above that occur in the sea directly and significantly affect ocean-dependent people, especially marginalized ocean communities. Slide 4, please. A literature reviewed and conducted by Nathan Bennett found 10 types of injustices as a result of blue growth or blue economy, which in many cases neglect the element of strong sustainability and justice. Bennett found 10 types of injustices as a result of blue growth, which can be grouped into 3 main categories. The first one, injustices relevant to the access to tenure, environmental rights, access to utilization of marine resources. Number 2, injustices related with the access to distribution of benefits, especially for marginalized groups such as women and local and indigenous people. Number 3, injustices relevant to the access to genuine community participation that is often manifested in the lack of involvement of the community in the decision-making process and governance. Slide 5, please. Responding to the climate crisis and access from the blue growth-related activities, leaders of the large ocean nations, it is called a high-level panel on sustainable ocean economy, where Jim Sleep was there as well. Experts, supported by experts, academia and researchers, coin or develop new ocean paradigm. The first paradigm is Sustainable Ocean Economy Principle, SOE, which is in the form of, it is called 3 P's. The first P is protect effectively. The second P is produce sustainably. The third P is prosper equitably. And the second paradigm is Blue Justice Principles, coined by Nathan Bennett et al. With his researchers. And the third paradigm is Blue New Deal. Slide 6, please. Recently, more environmental and sustainable development advocates perceive that sustainable development paradigm does not guarantee not to cause environmental degradation and social injustices. Therefore, when it is mentioned sustainable development, which sustainability we refer to? Strong sustainability versus weak sustainability. Strong sustainability does not only view the environment as merely an economic potential, but a sustainable value for ecosystem function and people's welfare. Thus, natural resources cannot be substituted and replaced by man-made wealth. Meanwhile, weak sustainability is based on market economic theory, which is human-centric in nature, where there are no natural resources, even if they are critical, that cannot be replaced by other forms of capital. Weak sustainability means natural resources capital can be replaced by man-made wealth. Slide 7, please. So, why do we need blue justice and strong sustainability in the frame of blue economy? The blue justice concept was initiated by various academics and activists because the current blue economic concept still carries risk of social and environmental injustices caused by blue growth or blue economy practices. The blue growth narrative is often interpreted as an invitation to increase the intensity of exploitations of marine resources. Industrialization of the marine economy only provides benefits to groups of investors compared to marginalized communities. Strong sustainability in ocean policy is crucial for preserving marine ecosystem, mitigating climate change, and managing fisheries sustainably, preventing pollution, protecting vulnerable species, and ensuring intergenerational and intragenerational equities. Strong sustainability does not only view the environment as merely an economic potential, but as sustainable value for ecosystem function and people's welfare. Thus, natural resources cannot be substituted by man-made wealth. Strong sustainability requires strong instruments of protection, which are regulated at the constitutional as well as in statutory levels. In conclusion, by integrating equity or justice and strong sustainability into ocean policy, we can create a more just and sustainable ocean governance. For further questions, is Indonesian ocean economy sustainable? What are threats to Indonesian ocean economy? Perhaps one indicator that can define the present condition of ocean economy is Ocean Health Index, where Indonesia ranked 137 out of 221 countries in 2022 from 10 ocean health indicators. This is quite challenging for all of us as Indonesian nations. Based on Indonesia's Sustainable Ocean Program and Ocean MDTF describe at least 6 threats to Indonesian ocean economy. And based on IOGI study in 2022, nationally, the economic value of fishing activities has increased. However, in areas where the majority are fishers, there are still high poverty rates and disparities in access to government assistance. For example, the poverty rate in East Lombok Regency is 15.2 to 24%, and in Wakatopi Regency is 14 to 31%. Slide 9, please. Based on EOG study, in 2022, on the regulatory assessment of various laws and regulation related to marine resources, from 23 elements represent strong sustainability and justice elements, most of the existing laws related to marine resources have offered early indication of the significance of safeguarding these marine resources. This is a good news actually, in the normative levels. Normatively, there are sufficient awareness of the lawmakers to put in 25 principles in accordance to justice and strong sustainability. Slide number 10, please. In regards of marine biodiversity, instrument protection, currently there are already existing marine protection instruments applied globally, at least particularly sensitive sea area under IMO regime, PSSA under IMO regime, ecologically or biologically significant marine areas under CBD regime, and United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction, BBNG, that's already mentioned by Ibu Valerie, that can be achieved through several tools, among others, area-based management tools, ABMTs, including marine protected areas, as mentioned by Pak Kus, and fair and equitable access and benefit sharing regime for marine genetic resources. ASEAN countries must acknowledge and utilize these instruments protection and also enhance international cooperation. Conclusion, slide 11 please. It is crucial for ocean governance and policy in every country, including Indonesia, to embrace the concept of strong sustainability and blue justice within the blue economy framework. This necessitates the integration of a just and strong sustainability principles within the blue economy framework. Existing marine resources related laws in Indonesia and internationally have offered early indication of the significance of safeguarding these resources. Hence, it is imperative to incorporate the concept of a just and strong sustainable blue economy into diverse national legislation concerning marine resources management. The already existing marine protection instrument, such as particularly sea-sensitive area, IMO, ecologically, biologically significant marine areas under CBD, and then UN Convention like High Seas Treaty in 2023, and best practices as documented by the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, or the ocean panel, must be acknowledged, consistently utilized, and enforced by countries around the world, including countries in ASEAN, particularly Indonesia. Last point is, in line with declaration number 2 of ASEAN Leaders Declaration on Blue Economy, published October 2021, which they agree that blue economy for ASEAN refers to sustainable, resilient, and inclusive use, governance, management, and conservation of oceans, seas as well as marine and coastal resources, and ecosystem for economic growth across various sectors. It is relevant to emphasize what is meant by sustainable and resilient. It's directed toward a just and strong sustainability again, with the maximum utilization of at least principles derived from Blue New Deal, Blue Justice, and strong sustainability and sustainable ocean economic principles. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih, Pak. Thank you. So that was a very interesting introduction to blue justice, which is such a critical topic, and that central observation that in the midst of all of this great richness and wealth and potential of the ocean, so many of the communities, the fishers, the people who work in small and informal businesses are living below the national averages and often below the poverty line. So there is something that is not right in the way that in blue justice that we need to tackle and need to be embedded in our approach to the blue economy. So we come now to the second part of our session. I thank our speakers very, very much indeed for such illuminating and presentations which have moved around some of our different topics and approached some of the same themes in different ways, which is great. So thank you for elevating our understanding of the sustainable blue economy, opportunities and challenges in ASEAN. I'm shortly going to open the discussion to our esteemed delegates here today. And while you think of questions, please remember our objectives of advancing our collective understanding of the blue economy challenges and opportunities that face us, identifying good practices that may be adopted more widely, and identifying where there are activities, programs, synergies and complementarities across ASEAN member states that would invite the potential for collaboration. Whilst you formulate your questions, I will ask a very short, sharp question to each of our participants. And we'll start in reverse order. We'll start with Pak Ahmed, if I may. But in your opinion, what is the biggest collective challenge that ASEAN member states need to resolve before they begin realizing the real benefits of the blue economy? Pak Ahmed, could I start with you, please? Just a couple of sentences.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, when I look at the ASEAN Leaders Declaration on the Blue Economy, this is the first move. It's very, very positive. They declare some commitment, and they will promote not only blue economy, but they reiterate blue sustainable ocean economy, blue sustainable economy. And so that's the what do you call it, the first move, which is very important. But as I mentioned previously, that we need to really not only consider strong sustainability instead of weak sustainability, and justice principles integrated into the framework of the blue economy in ASEAN countries, including Indonesia.
So that integration of sustainability and justice into the governance, embedded into the infrastructure. Okay, thank you, Pak. Pak Puji. So the same question, that what is the biggest collective challenge that ASEAN member states need to resolve in order to realize the benefits of blue economy?
Yeah, thank you, Mary. As I mentioned before, if we have some policy, then we need the data, because without the data, we cannot measure that our effort, our policy is effective or not. So from perspective of statistical agency, among the ASEAN member country should what we call the same data. If we comparing to G20, for example, there is a program, data gaps initiative, to collect some data. Maybe in this event, yeah, we can propose the same agenda. For example, we collect some data related to the ocean. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Secretariat ASEAN also have a program. But as long as I know, the data collected by ASEAN Secretary focus on economy and social. As far as I know, that's I recommend the ASEAN member country can build the same basis data, the same methodology, so the all policy we implement can be measured effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Puji. So that common standardized approach to data, and potentially this could be something handled by the ASEAN Secretariat that could sit there. Thank you. Interesting thought. Pak Dudi, Dr. Dudi, you may have a comment on a similar theme.
Yes, I think one of the major challenges among the ASEAN member states in terms of science and technology and innovation development is the variety or even diversity of science and technology and innovation development among the ASEAN member states. And that require shared resources, and based on the togetherness principle of ASEAN, we should move together, and therefore we should also consider those countries who does not have necessary resources. For example, for the integrated ocean monitoring system, based on our discussions, we identified perhaps a country like Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore has the sufficient resources to develop such monitoring system. And so therefore we have agreed that these three countries will lead ASEAN attempt to develop this integrated ocean monitoring system. So the other challenges is, I think, the variety of cultures also. Based on our experiences in discussing with other member countries, there are a number of cultural issues that need to be resolved. I think that's the two major challenges for ASEAN states.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you're talking about different ASEAN member states having different starting points and different capabilities in measuring integrated ocean monitoring, for example. Some Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand better able to contribute to that than some of the other countries. And of course the cultural differences. We've got 10 very different cultures and nations within the consortium, within the collaboration. Okay, thank you, Pak Dudi. Dr. Kurniawan, Dr. Kostiantoro, sorry, my mistake. Could I ask you the same question, the key challenges for ASEAN member states in addressing the blue economy?
Thank you, Mary. I think collaboration in ASEAN to support in data. I believe that data available in such institution, but how to integrate, how to link it, since data is based for policymaker. I think collaboration in ASEAN is need to support blue health.
Okay, so greater collaboration around blue health directly. Yeah. Thank you, Pak. And Dr. Jim, please.
I'm going to pull all those threads if I can. If this region is going to build a blue economy that is thriving, sustainable, and just, that's going to face a lot of inertia in the system, right? I mean, in any part of the world, that would be true. There are just deeply established ways of doing things. There are deeply vested interests in various of the sectors that we're talking about, and it's hard to break out of those ways of doing things. So inertia is, for me, the central challenge. And there are, what I've heard here, 4 things, I think, that offer pathways. The first, of course, is crisis. Right? We're headed into an era of unprecedented challenge in managing and sustaining these resources, especially because of climate, but of other pressures. The second is opportunity. We've heard a lot about opportunity over the course of this day, and there clearly are huge opportunities if these resources are managed well and developed thoughtfully. I was very heartened by the story of the NBAAP. I can't remember all the words. But I was there, I saw the launch, and it's amazing how far it's come and what a broad and committed coalition seems to be assembling there. And that clearly gives you hope that it is possible for actors to come together around an agenda like this. And the last thing is data, which we've heard from 2 or 3 people across this stage. But we need better data, not just because we're all wonks, but because we can illuminate the challenges and possibilities in a way that's not happening now, and actually help motivate the kind of change that needs to happen.
Thank you very much. So this is a challenge that is not ocean-based at all. It is the inertia here in land in some of our institutions that we're likely to face with such a big agenda. Pak, please, your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe it is quite subjective for me because this is the first time I attend this important theme of discussion, and then it impressed me greatly. And I'm sorry I missed the speakers, except the latest one. I call him as my friend, but I don't know how he called me. But I want to endorse that the phrase of blue justice is very important in discussing the ocean. And the second one, I think we must add another paradigm that the ocean must be owned collectively. Even though we know And also, we recognize the sovereignty of many nations. But when we talk about the collaboration, and then that collaboration must be injected with the development of technology, then we'll get the problem. Because only the advanced countries who own everything that they need to intervene in the ocean or blue economy. And that's why the first one, I want to re-endorse what my friend have stated, that blue justice must be our moral theme in every discussion about the blue economy. Thank you.
I'm going to invite a round of applause for that comment. Thank you so much. Pak, please come to the microphone. Oh, I'm so sorry. Please, Will. And then we come.
Can you hear me? Hi there. Thank you, first, the organizers, for putting on an important event on the development of the milestone roadmap on the blue economy in Indonesia. Thank you also to the speakers. I'm Dr. Roshni Menon. I represent a think tank called Pathfinders, based at the Center on International Cooperation at New York University. We're an outfit that works with at least 43 partner countries, amongst other things, to help drive the implementation of SDG 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions throughout the world. But we adopt an SDG 16 plus framework, which also includes ameliorating inequality and exclusion, which means SDG 10 is strongly on our agenda as well. We believe that we have a rare opportunity to bake in inequality reduction considerations, both vertical and horizontal, into policies and programs as economies around the world grapple with transitioning into more sustainable, just pathways. So my question is really centered around blue jobs and blue skills, and probably best directed at Ms. Kent and Dr. Ahmed. I think from the framework that you've described, I'm interested in blue innovation and blue justice, as it seems to focus on what the representatives from Singapore earlier touched on, investments in people, jobs, upskilling, reskilling, to ensure that everyone from highly skilled to the medium skilled to the lower skilled and the most marginalized are able to benefit from the blue economy. So I'd love to hear more about the reskilling and upskilling component of the blue economy roadmap. For instance, has or will an evidence-based study be completed on where the needs in terms of skills and skill building, retraining are with respect to the blue economy? Has that been completed? Will that be completed? What's the latest thinking around links that can be made between the private sector and the local scales with coastal communities? How can this be done? How are countries collaborating around this? What about the inclusion of young people who are traditionally sort of the most unemployed in countries in Southeast Asia? So how are young people being incorporated into job creation in the sector? And what are the needs, what are the needed conditions and tools to achieve these employment goals so that we ensure that the blue economy is also a just blue economy? Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roshaman. Thank you very much for your question. Let me invite this gentleman, and then I'll come to answer as much of that as we can.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, I'm Abdul Sakti from Raja Ali Haji Maritime University. It's very impressive presentation from the speaker. But I have a question. Do this project will sustain? Why? Because I didn't see, or maybe it's the involvement of the academia in the adequate manner here. I mean the Minister of Education National for Indonesia or even for the ASEAN country. Because I know maybe not everybody is agreeing in this room, the green economy is fair for me because it's too expensive. And why? Because the people didn't understand about the green economy. the green economy is understood by the elites. It's the same thing we do today. We talk about blue economy, but people didn't understand the blue economy. So I think we have to use the power of the university to, to propagate of the blue economy across to the community in across country. So I thanks to Pak Santosa that mentioned the academia and the future generation that can be the responsible for the blue economy. So I think for the next agenda, maybe please invite the Minister of Education National that we can entering the blue economy in our curriculum because it's very important for the sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak. We've got two very, very rich and very important questions there around blue jobs and skills and around reskilling, upskilling, future generations. And, you know, if we're looking at a 2025 target, we need to look at the individuals who are 5, 10, 15 years old right now. And that is education. I'm tempted to jump in, but I won't. I'm going to... Pak Firman, would you have a comment on jobs and skills in the maritime sector and how these can be incorporated? Would you like to come in on that one?
Thank you, Bu Mari. Thank you for the questions on how we can incorporate the blue skills, upscaling and reskilling in the maritime sectors. So we did work together with ILO, with Bu Mari. So basically, we tried to identify the skills gaps in several subsectors of the maritime sectors. If I remember correctly, it's in shipbuilding and then also in the maritime trade, and then the last one
seafaring.
Seafaring. So basically, by doing this, we try to identify what are the existing conditions right now that we have in our labor conditions, especially in the maritime sectors, and we identify the gaps to achieve what we want, the target that we want in upscaling and scaling the labor in the maritime sectors. So this is the first step. So we need to identify the gaps, and then we need to connect this study to the policy making process. So fortunately, by having collaborations between different stakeholders, different ministries, Indonesia, Marves, and also with the Ministry of Labor, so we have what we call the Vocation Skills Committee. So we can put this report as a one pilot project. So this Skill Vocations Committee will put this as pilot project. So they will make guidelines for these skills, gap skills, and they will create some kind of roadmap for how we can achieve these targets based on the report from what we do together with ILO. So again, I think basically if we want to do this upskilling and reskilling, so we have to do the research first. We have to do the study what is the skill gaps and how we can connect with the policy making process. And this is the role of collaborations between different stakeholders, not only like the government, but also like development partners, but also university will play a key role. I think maybe that's my answer.
Thank you so much, Pak Firman. Thank you. So, yes, as Pak Firman said, that there has been some work to map some of the gaps in maritime sectors and to develop a sectoral skills committee which consists of industry, government, academic partners, worker representatives to take that skills and implement them at policy level through into the education system and the upskilling and reskilling system. So there are some consultations taking place and we would be so happy to have your inputs into those going forward. But to look a little bit more broadly, Pak Dudi, would you have any more to add about mean, we talk about science and technology, and this is obviously important and it's obviously central. This is a huge topic in a country the size of Indonesia, with the challenges that we have in front of us. What are your perspectives on implementing and improving science and technology capabilities for the maritime sector?
Yes, maybe I'm not the right person to answer that question, but I would like to respond also. First, I fully agree with the involvement of universities. In fact, a number of our experts during the discussion are professors from universities. In terms of implementation of our proposed project, we do realize that because basically our project will be people-centered, small-scale farmers. So smart aquaculture, that is really beneficial for these small farmers. So therefore, the people aspect is very important. And perhaps based on our experiences, when we talk about the human empowerment, professors, students from universities are more experienced and knowledgeable about that. So I would expect that the involvement of universities in our proposed project should play a major role, I think. But again, as I said before, that this proposal will be discussed in the COSTI meeting next October, and then should be approved by the committee.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know, Dr. Jim, as we have at least 2 international universities represented here, and often that's a very important way of bringing innovation into a closed system. What role would you say that international university expertise has in sort of refreshing the thinking and accelerating our pathway?
So I guess I would say a couple things. So one is there is a vibrant community of researchers in this space, in oceans overall and in blue economy. A colleague of mine repeatedly says, so oceans are the new black, which is just to say they are in fashion, and there is a lot of attention to oceans in the policy space, and that's reflected in the research space. And I think a lot of excitement and power in research collaborations that bridge across countries. Right? And so, for example, we are beginning work with Bappenas on the development of a blue food assessment for Indonesia. Our role there will be to work with Indonesian partners who have real insight into what needs to be understood and how it can be understood, and bring the perspectives we have from the global work that we've done and the work we've done in other places. But I think those kinds of collaborations are very fertile for getting at the questions that we're talking about. We all have a lot to learn from what's happening in other places, and a lot that we can do together. That's the first thing. Second thing on training, this is actually a broader, I think, need. Obviously, there are acute capacity building challenges in various contexts, but we also need a growing cadre of people who are focused on these issues and equipped to help solve them. And I think that's something where we also have common cause, and where cooperation between universities in other countries and universities here could do a lot together. Can I add one thing? So while I have the mic, on blue justice more broadly, one of the papers in the Blue Food Assessment is on justice, led by Christina Hicks. You can find it at bluefood.earth. But what's important about it for this conversation is that it looks at every country in the world, well, at least 195 countries. And what it finds is that policies that address justice issues really make a difference. So that it actually identifies in several domains of justice pathways that we can see have measurable impact. And that's at least a good starting point for thinking about what can be done in this context in ASEAN.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Jim. Pak Rama, please, your question. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Mary. I'm Dr. Baktiar. I'm the Blue Planet Fund Coordinator for South and Southeast Asia. The UK is the ASEAN Dialogue partner, and after learning about how costly work, for example, in science, so I am actually curious about what would be the best way to work with ASEAN regions, with ASEAN nations, since all the programs needs to be ASEAN's register of like programs needs to be approved by a half and then plus one member state. So that's my first questions. The other questions I want to touch on the issue that Professor Lee already highlighted, which needs collaborations. It's the IUU fishing. So it requires the entire region to work on the issue. And also, like last Friday, I read an article in Kompas, the biggest daily in Indonesia, about food waste. So FAO apparently already pointed out that we have like 30% food waste out of fishery industry globally, and also that also requires very massive efforts on that covers policy, regulations, technological challenges, and how do we can work on that issues at the regional level, because IUU fishing and then it leads to food waste problems that needs to be addressed, together, all the nations in the regions, because we cannot just, addressing IUU fishing, say in Indonesia while in Philippines, and then Timor-Leste is still doing it, because we're just shifting the problem, moving the problem away, but then we are going to have the same problem later on. It's our own food security. So that's I want to touch that issue as well. Yeah, that's cool, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Rama. So two huge issues there that I'm sure could keep us going for a long time, but IUU and food security again. And I'll come to IUU if I may, because I know that a number of our panel members have got expertise in this area. Pak Ahmed, would you like to make a comment on IUU and how the region needs to collaborate?
Yes, I think the topic of ASEAN collaboration stay since long time ago actually. I remember Pak Jim Sleep when we discussed it in New York City at the time. Initiated by former Minister Susi Pujasuti at the time. I think it's a good idea, Pak. The network and ASEAN level, both IUU fishing. But as far as I know, Pak Sesditjen will explain more thoroughly about the existing network. RPOA actually can also be utilized. And also the plan to establish IUUF network, ASEAN. But as far as I know, we haven't started yet. But the plan is still there. So I do agree, Bu, about the existence of the effective network.
Okay, and would any other, Pak Kustiantoro?
Before I want to respond question from Prof. Sakti. But I think sustainability will be reached if we on the same platform. All stakeholders are already staying on the same understanding regarding this aim of collaboration. And then the academic must active to exploring and share the recommendation regarding the blue economic to all stakeholders. I think enough about I wishing comment from Pak Agus.
And that the coordination is central, isn't it?
It's expert from IUPC.
We have time for just one more question, and then I'm going to come to the panel for some quick final thoughts. Oh,
may I just respond to your questions about how to work with ASEAN? I think, yes, you're right that every single project should be approved by not only HALP +1, but all members should agree upon. And to be frank, that way of doing business is not really, I would say, not really the best way of doing a project. And therefore, I think Indonesian Kosti is thinking about taking the initiative of a project, and we don't think that we need approval as long as the project is fully funded by Indonesia. So we will design the project and invite all the member countries to join the project, to participate in the project. So one of the directions, it's not happened yet, but one of the directions is that ASEAN Kosti will take a lead in a number of projects, fully funded, and we invite other member countries to participate and also to contribute. So that could be a future direction of doing project in ASEAN. Respond.
Thank you, Pak Dudi.
Can I just quickly translate that into the IUU context? So one of the most important things for areas of cooperation in IUU is to share real-time data on vessels, right? Who owns them and where, what flag they carry and what they're called and so forth, but also where they are and where they've been. That's a hard thing to get universal consensus on, but the approach that we have been supporting in APEC is to look at whether there's the potential for a coalition of the committed to get started with that. And if you had a handful of countries in ASEAN who were ready to do that, to share their granular data on their fleets, you could actually begin to show a different way of getting at it after IUU, and you could bring in others over time.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to move to online questions. I think we have one question online. Can somebody give that to me?
Several marine ecosystems have been threatened, for example, due to the sea sand mining that will destroy marine ecosystems, such as coral reefs, seagrass, coastal communities who depend on the coastal areas for their living. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that question. And just for those who didn't hear, the question was, will there be an NBAAP project to support fisheries? It was specifically...
It was specifically that addressed the sea sand mining that threatened the community who depend on the coastal ecosystem for their living.
Okay, okay. So I don't know if Valerie, you might like to come in on selecting the projects for NBAAP, but I mean, I can briefly say that these are... I can briefly say that the task forces, the 4 task forces that are in place, are collaborations between Kemenko Marves, the UN agencies, and the donor communities or international development partners. So it would be around blue health, this topic would refer to, and I think that would be one to, perhaps we can refer to them and they can discuss with their membership. But essentially we are looking for, we will be looking to leverage interest from donors, and we very much welcome ideas and priorities to incorporate into that. So thank you. I think, sadly, that's the end of our time for questions. I will give a brief sum up, and then I'm going to come back to our very skillful panel here today. And I'm going to ask the question, just as a concluding point, I'm going to ask for reasons to be hopeful. We're moving towards 2030 and the year of the SDGs. And I would just like to ask you in turn, if there is one realistic, achievable hope that you could wish for in ASEAN during that timescale, what might that be? So I'll leave the panel to ponder that for 1 second, and I will just conclude. I picked up 4 very, very important themes that we've discussed today, and thank you to our audience as well as our panel members. But firstly, just the overwhelming, compelling case for blue food in terms of nutrition, environmental sustainability, and impact on coastal livelihoods. I mean, that is clearly huge, and we're grateful to have Dr. Jim here. The data is absolutely central, the need to have standardized data, and taking that a little further, building on the work of Pak Puji and BPS and Pak Dudi and Kosti. This needs to work with institutions. It needs to work with the infrastructure of Kosti, for example, the ASEAN Secretariat. These standards need to be embedded. And there needs to be trust. If we're going to share real-time data on vessels, that needs to be a trusting relationship that's developed. From Pak Ahmed's comment, the ocean is in trouble. We're in a climate crisis. Some of the blue growth that has taken place has resulted in severe environmental degradation and social injustice. There is no denying that. And tackling the future within a blue economy paradigm will entirely depend on embedding that morality into those institutional governance constitutions and structures. And then finally, as several of our panel members mentioned, this cannot be done by government alone. There is a need to work with partnerships like NBAAP, as Pak Firman said earlier. It has a reach beyond government. The importance of working across ministries, as Pak Puji stated earlier, that the need to collect data across ministries, and as Pak Dudi has also shown, the need to collaborate across ASEAN states. So I will finish there. Let me ask my panelists, if I may, for one reason to be hopeful in the timescale between now and 2030 for what the ASEAN community might achieve in the blue economy paradigm. Dr. Jim, please can I start with you?
Shoot. Okay, fair enough. So I think one of the most hopeful things happening now is this explosion of interest in oceans, which we had not seen before. It has really changed in the last 5 years from what we've seen before. That's true globally. And I think you see it manifest here in the focus on the blue economy. And Indonesia's really fantastic leadership in this year to continue to build that agenda and to show the way through the work that it's doing. So for me, that's a major reason for hope. How that translates between now and 2030, I mean, I think, I'm not from this region, but from the outside, it seems to me that we could begin to see a real surge in protection. I think every country in this region is committed to 30%, but at least many of them have. And I think there is real momentum around protection. And I hope we are beginning to see momentum around thinking differently about food from the sea and what those possibilities offer us as we meet the challenges of the future.
Thank you. Pak Kustiantoro, reasons for hope in what can be achieved in this region?
I think a sustainable partnership for blue health, for coastal community welfare. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Dudi, let me ask you, reasons for hope for this region?
I need more time to ponder on that question, but I would limit my response to the context of Kosti and science and technology. I think one of the reasons for hope in this area is that just 2 weeks ago, we met in Brunei, all the Kosti and also the science technology minister, and I sense agreement among the state members that ASEAN Kosti need to be reformed. The way of doing business in ASEAN Kosti should be redesigned, even though we don't know as yet, but the awareness is there now. And Indonesia will try to give an example of a new way of doing business. And although we still need to think about that, but I think the direction is already seen, and that is the reason for the hope in this area.
So you're seeing that movement in the institutional inertia that,
yes,
that might have slowed us down. Okay. Pak Puji, can I ask you for your reason for hope?
Yeah. As we know, this initiative is in the beginning step of this policy. So I hope this program are not in the short term, but also in the long term. In the term of statistical agency, we need that all policymakers need data. So we ask to all agency, not only in Indonesia, but also in ASEAN countries, we collaborate to providing the data needs to policymakers. Thank you.
Okay, so opening up our data to other stakeholders. Okay, thank you. And Pak Ahmed, please.
Yeah, some people ask me, how do you translate justice into real policy and practice? So one, for justice, for example, we need to assure there are three justices. The first one is the recognition of whether the rights of the marginalized people, ocean-dependent people, for example, to be recognized in the legal framework or constitutional framework. The second one is procedural justice. Procedural justice, not only normative, but also practice. It depends on the justice supplier, which is state, or justice demander, the people themselves. The third one is distributional justice. Distributional justice is more practice, actually. It's more dependent upon the state, government, and the level of awareness of the people itself. So I think we need to assure that three kinds of justices are practiced, recognized, and practiced in Indonesia. The second one is how do you translate strong sustainability? I think it's been practiced. It's been a precedence in Indonesia. For example, our President Joko Widodo already issued the 4 at least presidential regulation on EPSA. They established EPSA, ecologically and biologically significant marine areas. So but we need more. And Pak Kus is working on that issue, I think. So I think strong sustainability, the key idea is critical natural capital, which is unsubstitutable and unreplaceable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Some strong sentiments. Thank you so much. So I will wrap up here. Please join me in giving a very profound thanks to our panelists, Jim Leap, Pak Kustiantoro, Dr. Dudi Hidayat, Pak Puji, Agus Kurniawan, and Pak Ahmed Santosa. Thank you. I will leave you with some very quick words from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who said, "Humanity counts on the ocean, and now the ocean is counting on us." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. American, for moderating the station and for all of our speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let us give a big round of applause for our speakers and moderator. Now, it's time for us to extend our great appreciation to our speaker and moderator. We also invite Mr. Firman Hidayat and Ms. Valerie Julian. To Mr. Firman Hidayat and Ms. Valerie Julian. To Ms. Valerie Julian, please come up to the stage. to receive the token of appreciation. To present our appreciation, we would like to invite Mr. Leonardo Teguh Sambodo. Please kindly come up to the stage, sir. First, we'll give to our speakers. Last but not least, for our moderator for today's event, Miss Mary Ken. And now, we would like to kindly request to all the speakers, moderator, and Mr. Leonardo Teguh Sambodo to take a photo together in the stage. Please says to the main agenda, please. To the main camera, please. 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You may return to your seats. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda will be the concluding remarks for this important meeting from Senior Advisor to the Minister for Leading Sector and Infrastructure Development, Ministry of National Development Planning of the Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Leonardo Teguh Sambodo.
I will not hold you for longer time. So I think a big thank you for all the speakers, the moderator, and also the participants, and also for a productive discussion. So I hope that this working level meeting can inspire all of us on how we can start to develop connection, network, and collaboration. And hopefully this can also enrich our knowledge, but as well as to provide some solution as we can come together, work together, and for the benefits of blue economy that is inclusive and sustainable. And that is all. I think thank you again for joining us in this side event. And we are looking forward to have you for the gala dinner tonight. And maybe later on, our MC will announce the time, and please be there because it is our celebration for the 3 days event. Thank you again. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Mr. Leonardo Teguh Sambodo, for your closing remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, finally, the entire organizing team of this side event would like to sincerely thank our excellent speakers, our honorable guests, and all who have participated actively in our side event today. In addition, there will also be a series of island hopping activities and a culture exhibition on 4th July 2023. Please contact the committee after this event if you are interested in participating in these activities due to
Recording
limited
stopped.
capacity. Participants are expected to visit the Dewi in UNESCO Global Geopark stand which contains tourism related to the blue economy and UNESCO Global Geopark located around the island restaurant until 9 p.m. Participants who haven't registered are expected to register with a location barcode in the registration room. We hope that the whole series of the side event can contribute to the formulation of policy recommendation on the strategy to empower our blue economies as well as the enhancement of collaboration among ASEAN countries. I'm Sakila Cahya Mentari Isgani. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and see you on the next event.
Indonesia, the largest archipelagic country in the world, with abundant biodiversity potential in marine resources and strategic geographical location for more than half of international shipping. It is known for its wealth of marine natural resources, the beauty of its coral reefs, beaches, and natural seas.